Welcome to the Star Wars journey, where my goal is to complete and earn every available trophy in all of these Star Wars games that are on PlayStation 5. With Aspire's remaster of Jedi Power Battles launching in January, I thought now would be the perfect time to play through these adventures from a galaxy far, far away. First on our list is Super Star Wars, a re-release of the 1992 game of the same name that was originally a Super Nintendo exclusive. This is a 2D side-scrolling action platformer, so what we can expect from this genre and time frame is some difficult platforming and really cheap enemies, but with gorgeous 16-bit graphics. I have played this game before as it launched alongside 2015's Star Wars Battlefront as a bonus game if you pre-ordered the deluxe edition, but back then I didn't get very far and my patience ran dry with it very quickly. Nevertheless, today we're going to change that and earn all 12 trophies that are available. Disappointingly, there isn't a platinum. Instead, the rarest trophy is a gold trophy earned by beating the game on the highest difficulty without losing any lives. That one's going to be tough. Other trophies we have are completing the Princess Leia rescue mission with Han Solo, defeating various amounts of enemies, and there are some miscellaneous trophies to clear up on a second run of the game. But before we begin, let's take a quick look through the options, which I always do on all my games that I play. There's quite a bit here to tinker with for an early 90s game. We'll be playing it on hard, which is known as Jedi difficulty. There are various borders and filter options to choose, which is a nice touch. I'm going to play on the crisp option as I think it looks the best for a modern display, but you've also got a smooth option and scan lines if you want that arcade, retro feel. You can also change the controls, but I think they'll be fine the way they are. Upon starting the game, we have the iconic Star Wars text scroll, which brings us up to speed on the Empire and Princess Leia's attempt at escaping with the Death Star plans. We will later have to rescue the princess, but for now, we're in control of our hero, Luke Skywalker, on the desert planet of Tatooine. He's equipped with a basic blaster pistol, and our only objective is to reach the end of the level, shooting our way through the many different critters in the Dune Sea. There's scorpions that spit acid, miniox that attack from the skies, and some jumping womp rats that are a bit of a pain. The main difference with the Jedi difficulty is we take much more damage from enemy attacks. Luckily, this re-release does come with a save system in the pause menu that we are going to be abusing, else this could have been close to impossible to beat without losing a single life. If we do take a bit of damage, enemies will drop small hearts that we can pick up to heal ourselves, but it's only by a few notches. The blaster we have to start with has 5 stages of upgrades, which we progress with by finding more blaster pickups that are usually at random drops by enemies. Upgrading to level 5 is a requirement for one of the trophies, so we will be working towards that as well. By the middle of the first level, I had already upgraded it to stage 3, which is a homing shot version of the blaster, and it made the rest of the stage pretty easy. I also earned my first trophy on this starting level, which was for blasting 20 Minox out of the sky whilst they're diving down towards me. That was a nice easy one to start with, just a bit of target practice. Unfortunately, you'll begin to feel many of the game's cheap tactics that were heavily present in these types of games in the 90s. That includes endlessly respawning enemies, spawn positions where you can't really get a good shot on the enemy to start with, and there just being so much on screen that can damage you. It can be just a pain trying to dodge everything whilst also pressing on. I had to keep saving at every little bit of progress that I made. Once I reached the end of the stage, I had the first boss battle against the Sarlacc pit. I mainly just stood in the corner and sprayed it with missiles. The homing rockets took out most of the Sarlacc's projectiles, so it wasn't too difficult, but I bet if I had the starting blaster still, this would have been crazy annoying. Now we meet C-3PO, who tells us about his friend R2-D2 being taken away by Jawas, so we must go and rescue him. Beating the first level unlocks me my second trophy on this journey, which was for beating the level without getting hit by one of the sandworm enemies. I didn't even realise that I did this. There's only 2 of the sandworms in the first level, and they're pretty easy to dodge. From here we have the first of our 3 vehicle stages in the game, presented in these pretty neat pseudo 3D graphics. Our goal is to shoot a certain number of Jawas whilst also dodging their projectiles, and then proceed onto the sandcrawler in the distance. But for my 3rd trophy, I'm going to head in the other direction, and once I run out of fuel, I'll have got the next trophy for running out of land speeder fuel when not facing the sandcrawler. Now stage 3 is when things were getting very frustrating. While the first level was mostly just shooting and going across the screen, this level incorporates a lot of platforming into the mix as well. You got to dodge flying drones, Jawas positioned cheaply onto platforms where they can lob grenades at you that knock you off, turrets that are also positioned at spots that make them difficult to destroy, and flamethrowers just in case it wasn't difficult enough. Whilst you're tackling all of this, you have a painstaking climb across and up this huge sandcrawler where the platforms are moving in different directions. This stage is really going to test your platforming skills and shooting skills. It's a challenge, but thanks for the save system, it can be done if you just don't give up. On the plus side, I did get my 5th blaster upgrade, which unlocked me my 4th trophy. Now once you reach the top, there's a bit of a battle against tons of turrets that do insane amounts of damage if they hit you, but going slowly and taking them out as they come onto the screen worked the best for me. Now we drop into the sandcrawler. This stage managed to be even more mind-numbing than the previous. There's just so many difficult sections, like climbing up the elevator chute where there's more flamethrowers, Jawas lobbing grenades at you. Then later there's a section where you have to slide past these lasers, but it doesn't always work and the turrets are also shooting at you. I did manage to get my 5th trophy, which was defeating 20 Jawas in the sandcrawler, but it still didn't make me feel any more better about this stage. Now, after leaving the game and coming back to it a day later, I had built up enough patience to see this level to the end and defeat the boss. After this, we rescue R2-D2 and see his message about rescuing Princess Leia. Now we must find the man in her message, Obi-Wan Kenobi. This next stage through these caves weren't as bad as what has come before, but no less aggravating. Once we find Kenobi, he gifts Luke Skywalker his father's lightsaber, and now I felt like a Jedi. The lightsaber. We are going to rock through the rest of this game with ease. The lightsaber is garbage. Terrible range, and the enemies are no less chaotic, so I switch back to the blaster after a few deaths and never touch the lightsaber again. There's some tricky platforming here where you have to jump across these floating platforms whilst also combating Minox in the sky, which come down and try and knock you off. This was very tricky, but somehow I managed to make it through. Next we were off to Mos Eisley, where we find ourselves a ship that we can then head off to rescue the princess. But first, we must find the ship. Mos Eisley was also about as difficult as what I had already tackled so far. Stormtroopers just drop out of the sky onto you, and as you can certainly bet, they just walk into you, which hits you and takes damage. They don't even have to just shoot you. It's so cheap. And then you also have the spiked floors, the Stormtroopers with homing turrets. Just keep saving, make a bit of progress, save, make a bit more, die, and then reload the last save. That was my only tactic. If it wasn't dull already, it certainly was now. Eventually we make it to the cantina where we unlock Chewbacca as a playable character, but I decided to continue on as Luke anyway. The cantina level was next, and this was probably my favourite stage in the game. The enemies were all ground level and were easy enough to take out. There wasn't no superfluous platforming, the stage itself looked great, and you had the epic cantina music playing in the background. This was the height of the game for me, but even this is short-lived as the boss battle of the stage was just cheap as hell. Super Star Wars stayed super for about 3 minutes. I managed to find a tactic where if you keep jumping back and forth, you can somewhat dodge enough of the boss's attacks to where you can then defeat it. We meet up with Han Solo, who we now unlock as our third playable character. Next, we had to leave Mos Eisley like the previous Mos Eisley level, but with the BS cranked up to max. This was the most annoying stage so far in the game. At one point, I thought I was going to pop a blood vessel. I'm just glad again that the save system was there. Eventually, I managed to make it, and I saved, in hindsight by accident, when I had just a small amount of health left. I thought it was the end of the stage. But then came the level boss. A flying death machine spitting projectiles all over the screen, throwing up fire. This was a nightmare. Try to shoot it, dead. Tries again, dead. Tries a fourth, fifth, sixth time, dead, dead, dead. I was honestly so close to giving up and throwing in the towel the whole 100% Star Wars games journey over on the first game. But for some reason I decided to have one last go. I roll under it, take out the turret from underneath, then roll to its back end, take out the guns at the back. Still, I had a bit of health left, somehow. I saved the game, then I just had the front to tackle with. It took a few tries, but I did it. Boss defeated. Now I breathed. Tatooine was completed, we got into the Millennium Falcon and set off to the Death Star. The next stage actually wasn't too bad. I was getting used to having tons of stuff chucked right at me whilst I was also trying to platform. There's TIE fighters that fly across the screen, but the platforms were positioned to where most of the time you can just jump over the TIEs. This actually felt like the first fair designed level. One that actually treated the player as just that, a player, and not a punching bag. The next stage treated me like a punching bag. You've got these ceilings that now crush you, you got to slide under them, but also there's drones and mouse droids to contend with. It can be a pain. Thankfully I managed, and completing this stage has us rescue the princess. Now because I was Han Solo for that level, it unlocked me my 6th trophy for saving Princess Leia as Han Solo. With the princess rescued, we had one more task aboard the Death Star, to disable the tractor beam. This was the most infuriating stage in the whole game. It's a huge climb up the screen. You're platforming, you're dodging turrets, and stormtroopers with cannons. It took so many lives, so many saves, and many tears. But then, upon reaching the top, I had a diabolical battle against the tractor beam that just fired projectiles in every single direction. I just didn't know what to do. I had very little health, I had to try everything, and somehow I found a sweet spot where I could shoot and damage it just a little bit each time it moved down, and its numerous projectiles couldn't hit me. What an awful battle that was. Next, we retreated to Yavin, where the rebels were given the plans to the Death Star. Uncovering its weak point, we set off as a squadron to at last finish this and destroy the Death Star. This is the final vehicle stage, which is split into two halves. First, we had to take out 20 towers and 20 TIE fighters. This was another painful task as the controls of flying the X-Wing are garbage. If there's a projectile flying towards you, there's almost no way to dodge it, it's just pure luck based. I tried to keep moving left and right, doing anything I could to not get hit, and just spraying my weapons. Eventually, I moved on to the second half of the stage, where we enter the iconic Death Star Trench. In here we have to survive long enough until we reach the weak spot, shooting the TIE fighters and preventing them from depleting our shield. Destroying 20 of them during this section did earn me my 7th trophy. Now the trench run wasn't the most difficult section in the game, but it was still a bit tricky. After a few attempts and a clash with Darth Vader in his advanced TIE fighter, I finally did it. 2 torpedoes in the hole later, and the Death Star turned to dust. The rebels had saved the day. Luke and Han get some medals, Chewie doesn't, and then the credits roll, hinting that Darth Vader may still be alive. Beating the game on Jedi difficulty and without losing a life thanks to the saves meant I earned the game's only gold trophy and the 8th trophy so far. It was certainly a challenge getting here though. Now I still had 4 trophies left to get. I had to kill 5 enemies with a single thermal detonator, which are a rare drop when defeating certain enemies. I had to play as all 3 characters in one run of the game. I had to defeat 3 bosses as Chewbacca and kill Greedo using Han Solo. With the game completed once, I could select Chewbacca from the beginning and I started my second run, so I could defeat the first 3 bosses as Chewie. This second run, I turned the difficulty down as I no longer needed to beat Jedi difficulty, and it was now a cakewalk. It also helped that Chewie has more health than Luke and Han. I glided through the first level, it was so easy now. I defeated the Sarlacc pit, managed the next few stages in the Sandcrawler, they were also piss easy, defeated the lava monster, which was still a bit of a pain, but I managed. Then it was onto the Rockies, where I battled the mutant Womp Rat, which was again super easy. And upon defeating that 3rd boss, I got my trophy, 3 more to go. Next I switched to Han Solo, and upon entering the Cantina level, Greedo is right there as one of the first enemies on the screen. Killing him earned my 10th trophy. This level was now actually even more fun to play through as Han, and my next trophy was down to complete sheer luck. Further up there's these enemies that jump from the background, and there are a few of the game's foes that drop thermal detonators. After these, there's a rare burst of 5 enemies that when using the thermal detonator to clear the screen earned me the penultimate trophy. This seemed to be the best area to do it and the best stage to get this trophy on, but again this trophy is difficult due to it being completely based on luck, as these enemies aren't always going to drop these thermal detonators. Lastly, dying at this very annoying boss at the end of the Cantina level, and then picking Luke when I respawned, had me unlock the game's final 12th trophy for playing as all 3 characters in a single run, and with that, Super Star Wars was complete. Super Star Wars is egregiously cheap. That would be my 1-sentence description of this game. I can see that back in 1992, this was probably a well-loved game, but nowadays I would have given up hours ago if I wasn't making this video. My favourite aspects were the music, for certain, the graphics are really nice, especially the pseudo 3D vehicle levels, and of course the save system, which really helped. Even though you really should get more than one save file, as if you overwrite it by accident whilst doing the Jedi difficulty run, then you'd have to start all over again. It's also a very luck-based trophy list. Getting 5 enemies with the thermal detonator is going to be quite tough. But completing the game in one run on Jedi is just painful. The level design almost always works against you, and the amount of obstacles that can damage you are in such high numbers. It can be headache-inducing trying to progress. I'm going to score Super Star Wars at a D for dull. I can't actually say that I enjoyed playing through about 90% of this game, but it isn't outright garbage for it to fall to an E. Next in the Star Wars 100% journey is the Star Wars Dark Forces remaster. Hopefully that game is much more fun, but I guess we'll find out next time. Thanks all for watching to the end of this video. If you have any suggestions for these 100% platinum reviews, then let me know in the comments below. I'm always up for recommendations. As always, take care and have a great day.